All right, welcome to part two of fighting with horribly made torque boxes, where I will spend my entire time in here cutting, beating on this, and somehow making them fit. Okay, now I really haven't done any cutting or anything to this yet. I've just taken the inside piece out, and this is just the outside piece. I'm going to fit this first, actually. I can fiddle that, make that fit somehow. Now, right now, I'm touching here. I'm touching the piece right in here. And as you can see, we're hanging down there. Now, the issue, part of the issue with that I didn't mention before, is that since I put convertible rails in here, that added some extra thickness here to what you would have on, say, a normal convertible, because these pieces, this box rail here that's behind here is much thicker than the original. And then you've got the existing flat piece that's in here too, so you've doubled up on that flat piece. So this has either got to be rebent to move over a little bit anyway, just to make that, you know, give it a little more room. Or the easier version is come over to this side, yeah, hands in the light, and reform this flange here. Just take this flange and then modify it and move the bend back just a little bit. All right, sorry about that. But move that bend back just a little bit, and that way this whole thing will kind of go just a little bit. And you say, well, why don't I do this one? Well, this one is quite a bit longer to do. It has extra little bends. It's kind of a pain in the butt. And you have to do this one as well. So you have two of them to do. So this is the easy way out. Modify this one just a little bit, and it's not much. It's just, say, like right back to about right there. Just that little bit. I don't know if you can see that at all, but a little bit. Move it back. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crawl out from underneath here with this. I'm going to rebend this. And then I'm going to see how, make sure I get enough to where this fits up in here without having to fight with it too much. Sorry for the lighting. I don't have a really good way to light this. And I hope the color is okay with that light. So I'll do my best now. So I'll get that in there till we'll go up. And then I'm also going to take, for right now, is this entire bend all the way across here, I'm going to take this whole piece and just bend it back out, because I don't really care about fitting this piece yet. I want to get everything on the bottom fit. I want to get the bottom to fit, and I want to get to fit against here. Then I'll fight with this, and then I'll fight with, fight with this and the inside piece at the same time. Assuming any of that's in shot, but but as you can see, this is actually pretty close to where it really should be. I can push it up, kind of almost goes, and you see it's just not even remotely close to fitting the car. So like I said, I'll reform that, flatten this bend out here, and we'll be back in a few minutes and see if it'll fit or not. And just to show you how I bent that, I put it in my high-tech box brake that I have. It's a CNC box brake, works really good. Big chunk of cast iron, piece of 3/8 steel, 2 C-clamps, and a hammer. Just beat it over. So you can see that was our old line. So we moved out. That's crooked from me drawing it crooked. So we've tightened up a little bit. Hopefully that's enough. Okay, well, I modified that bend. You see that's the old line, and it's kind of in the corner. I hope you can see it. Now if we want to have bent that back, it's angled a tiny bit backwards, and it fits quite a bit better now. Anyway, it fits better. There we go. Okay, so we fit pretty good this way now. Now the issue is to get this thing squared up that way, which, I'm flush down here, I'm touching, and I can get my finger in here. So next step now is to fight with this area up here. So I think for now, I'm just gonna bend it out until this thing here is 90 with this, and it all matches up, and hopefully it doesn't end up hitting here. Whatever, we'll find out when it happens. Something else I thought I'd point out here as well. This section right here, you'll notice that on that all needs to get blended. That was done with an old welder. That'll look prettier when it's done. But this part of the floor pan sticks out proud versus this. Now the better ones of these have a bend here for it. So I'm gonna put a mark about there, and then I'll debate whether I want to try to put a bend in that or not. Who knows? Okay, well, went ahead and started playing with this a little bit. So where we're at now is I just have this half sitting in here, and if you can see here, I've actually bent that little jog in there, which was not in this originally, because this is a really crappy part. One of the other issues is this jog doesn't continue all the way down here. So there's a big bump, you know, in the floor pan that, you know, kind of mimics this here, and it interferes right here. So, you know, there's one of two ways I can do this. Is one, I can just sit here, enjoy the rain, sit here, stare at it, and hope it fixes itself, but that's not going to happen. So I can either bend this piece, and I can put a jog in here, and I can put a big dip in here coming back at me here, make it fit around the floor pan, or I could go the really easy way and just bend the floor pan to fit this piece right here, because the floor pan's like paper thin. Now, I'm not sure which way I'm going to go on that just yet, to be honest. Either way, nobody's going to notice, nobody's going to care. So we'll kind of see how that goes here in a few minutes. Okay, well, I've made a little bit of progress. As you can see up here, I just put a couple dents in the floor pan and knocked it that way, got that piece up. I barely hit it with a hammer and it just made a dent. I mean, I didn't even try. It was just so thin and so soft, that's all it took. But for right now, I've got it. If I can find a way to get under here, but I don't know if you guys, ow. And yeah, okay. You can see it's not really in the right place, but that's what welders and other tools are for. So there we are right now. I've got this kind of pinched into place as we're kind of lined up here. You know, if I leave this open, I got a, you know, 3/8 gap right here, you know. So, and I don't know if you can see it very well on the camera, but this piece is still leaned way out this way, probably good 3, 4, 5 degrees. And the reason for that is right up in here is, you know, this little point doesn't, this shape is wrong. Everything about this thing is wrong. You know, we already know that. Okay, I'll just talk a little bit about what I'm doing to do here. And I did this earlier, a while back, and you can see that black line, that's where it used to be. I rebent that flange over because just had to. So what I'm planning on doing here is I've got a little mark right up in here. That mark's going to come, I'm going to come down a little bit further, and I'm going to make a new line all the way across here. I'm going to take this fold out, and I'm going to put a new fold in here, which means I have to trim some of this off as well. Enable that. This is actually was more bent that way it was made. I bent it out just to get it in place earlier. So I'm going to probably bring this down 3/8 to maybe a little over 3/8. Maybe a little over 3/8. We'll just see. And I have an idea about where it needs to go, because the whole thing needs to go up a little bit, and then this flange was already binding. So yeah, I may actually go even more than that. So yeah, I'll hack into that, and then we'll see what becomes of it. All right, well, that took a whopping 2 minutes, maybe 3. And you can see that doesn't look horrible now. That actually is fitting far, far better than it did before. So I think at this point what I'm going to do is do a little more tweaking backing to it, and still needs to go up a little bit. So I'm going to bend this in just a little bit more, bend this back a little bit more, and I should be able to move this right up into place. And then I'll have to put my jog in it to match this up over here, beat the pan back into the jog that should be there, and I think it's going to fit. All right, well, I have done a bunch more cutting, a bunch more bending, and I'm fairly happy with the way it's fitting. It's not finished, it's just rough fit, but just to show, this is how much I had to cut off the top here, basically to the bottom of the spot welds on both of them, to get that thing to tuck in the ballpark. I still got to work on that bend a little bit, you know, all that little finagly stuff, but it's in there. It's going to work from this angle. I do have a cut down here where this piece is going to be pushed up. That I'm probably going to wait to bend until after it's in. I'll probably going to weld the front in place, and then I'll just push that up in place and weld it. I'll prep it before I weld it. Now, I was discussing where I don't like this big gap here. I don't like this big gap here, and because it just stuff is going to get in there. So what I've done is, you can notice there's tape on here, and if you've ever done any kind of trim work in a house, you know, you guys, hopefully you guys could see some of this. That's compass. Hold that thing parallel, and then just you know, kind of do that, you know, and then go off the tape because you didn't put enough tape on there, but you get the idea. And I'm not looking for perfect, because this is just, I'll put a piece on and overdo it, and then come back and grind it off. But that gets you a ballpark, and I'll do the same thing over here as well. And what I've done is this is set at 1 inch, so I know that I need to go from here 1 inch out, here 1 inch out, parallel. But you want to hold this the same dimension, the same direction all the time. Don't turn it. You just want to just drag along like that, and just trace it. You do the same thing over here, and I'll make a patch piece to go in here. I'll make a patch piece to go up in here and get that. And I don't have to be perfect right against there. I just want to be close enough to where I can fill that with seam sealer. And the same thing goes there. Okay, I'm not going to show this whole thing because you guys have seen stuff welded before. But this is the piece I'm going to add on to here. And I've just put a bend in it. It's pretty much the same as that. And I'm just going to tack and weld that on there. And then I'll come back and I'll take my compass, and then I will put my line back onto here, and then I will trim a little, you know, leave a little extra, trim that off, and then I'll come back and do this one over here the same, and then I'll test fit it, see how it fits, and do some more fitting on it. And then I've got a whole bunch of holes to drill for to prep it for welding it on, and I'll clean up these edges here, you know, get all ready to go. Okay, well, after a bunch of welding and messing with it, I'm pretty much in place, pretty much where I want to be. I have added a chunk onto here, and yes, it's so much nicer welding this versus paper thin stuff. I welded a piece on here, I ground it. It's close enough, you know, seam seal it. Clamped over here. I've got, now, yeah, these were just seam welded, but I want to plug weld them and seam it. That's just me. And probably do the same thing over here. And over here I have, you know, plug weld going from the outside. I ended up splitting this. I bent this. This has a little curve in it. This is going to go a little more against there once it's in place. You know, I'll plug weld these things. I have to cinch them up somehow and figure it out. Now, a bunch of these on the back side, you know, where I drilled all these holes, you know, I took all the paint off, and I'm not the biggest fan of the weld through primer. You tend to get porosity from it and things like that, even if you clean it off well. I use it sometimes, but I don't like to. But what I do is I'll go ahead and recoat everything in epoxy primer. Now, you know, you're thinking, well, you know, I don't want to mix a bunch of epoxy primer and do that. Well, this is what I do. I have this thing here. This thing is this dinky little thing from Harbor Freight that I've had for many, many years. Just this tiny little touch-up gun, and all I do is mix up a tiny bit of epoxy primer, put it in that cup, and this thing works in any position because of the way the cup's made, and it's got a tiny little tip down there. And you can, when I'm doing this, is I can put a fan right across the width of this here and just go zzz, right across there. Very controllable. So you can just do these tiny little bits and pieces, you know, without having to get overspray all over the place. And I even went ahead and did, you know, up there, you know, just because I ground it off a little bit more to call it good. This is going to get seam sealed the rest of the way, so who cares? But yeah, that's all I do to do this, priming those little spots. Now I'm where I'm at. I want to be on the bottom here. I'm against here. I'm in line here. You can see that, yeah, but I'm in line there. So I'm against here, and I had to bend that over again. This is up to here. Now there's a gap here. That's because I beat the crap out of floor pan and bent it up out of my way. Now this is the floor pan because it's aftermarket, doesn't fit where the crap. So once this is all welded in place, I will tap this back to here and get it where it needs to be from the inside. It's fine, it'll work. Now you come over here, you'll see, yeah, I'm hanging way down here, and the reason for that is I talked about that last time. But anyway, I've got a little notch cut right across here. Probably can't see it, but there's a little notch cut there. And after this is all in place, I will take and push this up into here and weld it onto the flange. This just the only way to do it. And then the bottom will get welded from, you know, straight up underneath as well. So I'm not going to bore you with the welding of it, but I will show how I like to clean the holes here before I weld. So I'll get to that. I'll film that in just a minute. I'll weld it all on here, and we'll come back when it's all finished, because you guys have seen welding before. It's, you know, not rocket surgery. Okay, real quick here on prepping this for welding on these little plug welds. I do it one of two ways. I'll either use this, which is just basically a cheap little sandblasting gun I've had forever and ever and ever. You can take a piece of plastic, drill a hole in it, and you can make a big flat shield that goes on here, and you can even put little brush things around it and stuff like that to deflect it. I've done that in the past. I have one here somewhere. It's not on here. But what I'll do is, even if I don't have that, I'll put it like this, and I'll have a glove on, and I'll just go pss, 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 and then just blast that area out, and then call it done. The other way is just with a standard little El Cheapo off-brand Dremel kind of brush, and just, yeah, work at it that way. It works pretty good, actually. Just, you'll want to go forward sometimes, reverse sometimes, because if you push too hard, you know, you make it all gnarly. This one has done a bunch of them. All right, well, I have it welded in place now. I am going to come back and seam weld this here, and I'm going to put a seam weld here as well. I just want to. This is all fugly, but it's all fine. Yeah, there's a little bit of fugliness up there, but I need to tap that out. This piece was way in, so I bent it out a little bit. I'm going to smooth that out, put that into there, and then I'm not even going to ever worry about it, because this is going to get seam sealer everywhere. It's going to get undercoating. The other side's going to get deadener. I don't care. Done with it. It's on. I'm fine. I'm happy with it. I did put a hole through here. I welded that. I may drill and put another hole into the piece, the flange that's on the other side, and do another one here. I'll probably do that. This is a, you can see where it's welded on the inside. I'll probably go ahead and do that here in a few minutes. Down here, yeah, I got a little lip here from that, and I'll weld that little seam up. Yeah, this little, hopefully I'm just holding you guys down there, but there's, you know, the little lip there from where this has gone up, and it was able to go up pretty much flush with the bottom. You didn't quite make it over here. It's just the way it was. Nothing a grinder can't take care of. But that's up there. It's welded into place. The come on, fight the wheels that don't want to go anywhere. It's really dark down there, but you know, there it is. But yeah, it's on. And like I said, up in here, this is, oh yeah, there's a not all the way ground seam. I don't care. I'll seam seal this here. At least it's not a gap that I can put my hands in. You got the same thing here. This up here, I'm actually going to weld a piece into there. And then on this here, there's just the original flange here, and it's not here. I'm going to straighten this out because this needs to go in a little bit. I'm going to probably go ahead and just put a piece onto here, and I'll just weld it on all the way down. Or I'll go ahead and bend a 90 on it, weld it on the outside. Doesn't matter, it's just a little bit of strength thing right there. And but I'm just going to, I'll probably go ahead and put it on, or I'll just decide not to put it on at all, and it won't end up on there. And yes, this is kind of ugly under here, but I don't care. Seam sealer, undercoating, never see it. Not worth the effort of making it perfect. But it's on there, it's welded in. I'm going to do a little bit of touch up here and there. I'll grind off some of the welds a little bit so they're not, so there's no sharp bits on it, because you don't want paint over sharp things, because that's what comes off. But there it is. This was the more difficult one to do. I had to do a lot more cutting, and you know, I had to narrow it. I had to add in filler pieces here and here. Actually, sorry, here. And fill it here. I filled it there. This one took a whole lot of rebending. Like I said, this was rebent here. This had to be cut here to fit up in here. Yeah, nothing fit, but it's in there. I'll do a little more tweaking and hammering, and you know, get rid of some of the ugliness. Not that it really matters, but yeah, there it is. I'm going to go do the other side here in a little bit, and if there's anything special, I'll film it. But there you go. That's the pain in the butt torque boxes, just, you know, shoehorned into place with lots of beating and hammers and things like that. But it's there.